is the Unit 1 review for Mr. Stipp's U.S. History class. The title is Revolution and Constitution. What European country took the lead in the age of exploration? Portugal. What explorer wanted to reach the east by sailing west? Columbus. What country sponsored the voyages of Columbus? Spain. Which time period had scientific advances that allowed the age of exploration to happen? Renaissance. Which country is responsible for expanding the slave trade after 1500? Portugal. What was the name of the brutal transatlantic voyage that a slave made? Middle Passage. What were Spanish conquerors or invaders known as? Conquistadors. What is it called when goods, ideas, animals, etc., food, are traded across the Atlantic between the Old World and the New World? Columbian Exchange. What is democracy? Rule by the people. Where did the idea of democracy first originate? Greece. What's a republic? It's a representative democracy where voters elect representatives to represent them. The U.S. is a republic because we vote for representatives to represent us in Congress. California is a republic because we vote for representatives to represent us in Sacramento. Where did the idea of a republic originate or come from or start? Rome. What is the first document to place the king under the law in English history? Magna Carta. What document protected the rights of Englishmen in 1689? English Bill of Rights. What European intellectual movement influenced the rise of democracy in many countries, including the U.S.? Enlightenment. What did the Enlightenment encourage people to do to solve problems? Use reason. What did the Enlightenment encourage people to do? Question authority. What was the main contribution of Enlightenment thinker John Locke to America's founding fathers? The idea of natural rights, and can be clearly seen in the Declaration of Independence. What did Locke say were your natural rights? Life, liberty, and property. Where does natural rights philosophy teach that a person gets their rights? From God, or just by the fact you're a human being? What did Locke think was the purpose of government? To protect people's natural rights. When did John Locke think that people could rebel or overthrow their government? When it did not protect their natural rights. What did John Locke think government power should be based on? The consent of the people or the consent of the governed. Where did Thomas Jefferson get his ideas for the Declaration of Independence from? John Locke. What are 3 unalienable rights listed in the Declaration of Independence? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. What are unalienable rights? Rights that cannot be taken away. What Enlightenment philosopher believed in separation of powers? Montesquieu. What are the 3 branches of government in the Constitution that are based off of Montesquieu's thinking? The executive branch, which executes or enforces the law, the legislative branch, which makes the law, and the judicial branch, which interprets the law. What is the first permanent English settlement in the New World in 1607? Jamestown. What was the first elective legislature in the New World? House of Burgesses. What is important about the House of Burgesses? It's an example of self-rule by the American colonists. What document set up self-government in the colony of Plymouth Rock? Mayflower Compact. What is the Great Awakening? A religious revival in the American colonies in the mid-1700s. Who were the 2 main leaders of the Great Awakening? Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield. What event led to more Christians in the American colonies, more unity, and caused people to question authority? The Great Awakening. What was the biggest weakness of the Articles of Confederation? Couldn't levy or collect taxes. Who had the most power under the Articles of Confederation? The states. How many branches of government under the Articles of Confederation? 1, the legislative branch. What is the main reason the Articles of Confederation will be replaced? Because the central government didn't have enough power to govern effectively. Who is the father of the Constitution? James Madison. What was one of the main disagreements during the Constitutional Convention about? Representation, meaning how the states would be represented in the new federal government. Which plan at the Constitutional Convention called for equal representation for each state? The New Jersey Plan. Which plan called for representation based on population? The Virginia Plan. What was the name of the compromise made between the Virginia Plan and the New Jersey Plan that led to equal representation in the House of Representatives representation based on population in the House of Representatives and equal representation in the Senate? The Great Compromise. What was written to try and convince people to ratify the Constitution? Federalist Papers. Why were anti-federalists against the Constitution? They thought it gave federal government too much power and didn't protect individual rights. What is the supreme law of the land today? The Constitution. What's a delegated power? A power that only the federal government can do, like declare war. What's a reserved power? A power that only a state has, like marriage and education. What's a concurrent power? A power that both the federal government and state government can exercise, like taxing. What's another name for the necessary and proper clause in the Constitution? Elastic clause. Why is the necessary and proper clause called the elastic clause? Because the federal government can stretch the Constitution to do things that are not expressly written in it, like have an Air Force or provide for Social Security, if you can argue that it's necessary and proper to do those things. Where in the Constitution are the basic freedoms of the people found? The Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments. Who wanted a Bill of Rights added to the Constitution? Anti-Federalists. Why did Anti-Federalists want a Bill of Rights added to the Constitution? To limit the power of the federal government. What intellectual movement then influenced both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? Enlightenment. Where does the idea of separation of church and state come from? The First Amendment. What is federalism? A division of power between the states and the federal government. What principle keeps one branch of government from having too much power over the other two branches of government? Checks and balances. Which branch of government enforces the law? Executive. Which branch of government makes the law? Legislative. Which branch of government interprets the law? Judicial. How many senators does each state have today? 2. Equal representation. What are your rights guaranteed in the First Amendment? Freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. What part of the First Amendment makes sure there is separation of church and state? The Establishment Clause. What part of the First Amendment allows you to worship however you want? Free Exercise Clause. What's in the Second Amendment? Right to bear arms. What's in the Third Amendment? No quartering a soldier in people's houses. Fourth Amendment. No unreasonable search and seizures. The government needs a warrant to enter someone's property. Fifth Amendment. You do not have to incriminate yourself. Sixth Amendment. The right to a speedy trial. Seventh Amendment. Right to a jury trial in civil cases. Eighth Amendment. No cruel or unusual punishment. No excessive bail. Ninth Amendment. You have more rights than can possibly be listed in the Bill of Rights. 10th Amendment. If a power is not expressly delegated to the federal government, then it's reserved for the states or people. So that's the end of the review. Please study and get ready for your test.